The music was already playing, the guests were standing, and Catherine was moments away from beginning one of the most important royal engagements of the season. Then Meghan appeared at the entrance. Catherine saw her, stopped without warning, and made a decision that stunned every person inside the building. The engagement was cancelled instantly, but the expression on the Princess of Wales's face revealed that this was about far more than an unexpected arrival. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine had entered St. James's Palace carrying more than a speech. She had helped shape the reception, pressing for charities supporting children and families to stand at the center of the evening. A royal engagement, meaning an official public duty carried out on behalf of the crown, was supposed to bring attention to those causes. That was why cancelling it carried such weight. Yet the instant Meghan appeared, duty collided with something personal. William was still at a scheduled briefing elsewhere, leaving his wife to lead alone. The future king had expected a calm evening, not a crisis. Inside the ceremonial hall, senior courtiers, charity leaders, and invited families waited for Catherine's opening words. Meghan remained near the doorway, frozen by the speed of the decision. She had expected surprise, perhaps anger, but not total cancellation. Catherine did not look frightened, she looked wounded. Her fingers tightened around a briefing folder, while an aide asked whether the event should merely be delayed. "Cancel it," Catherine said. The words landed with brutal finality. A senior courtier closed the doors and instructed staff to describe the interruption as a private royal matter, meaning a family issue handled away from public proceedings. That phrase changed everything. It suggested someone inside the palace already understood the danger of Meghan's arrival. Meghan heard the order and stared across the entrance hall, waiting for Catherine to look back. She never did. Then Catherine's private secretary approached with a folded note. The princess opened it, read one sentence, and her expression hardened. She handed it back without hesitation. Then she knew exactly what she was doing, she said. No one nearby asked who she meant. No one dared. Catherine turned into a private corridor and left the waiting hall behind. Within moments, William's telephone rang. The message was urgent. Meghan's appearance might be linked to a warning delivered weeks earlier. A warning Catherine had never fully explained. But before William could understand why Catherine had walked away, he needed to know what Meghan's presence had awakened in the woman who had refused to face her. To the waiting guests, the cancellation looked sudden. To Catherine and Meghan, it was the collision of years of silence, resentment, loyalty, and unresolved pain. Neither woman had entered that building as a stranger to the other. They carried memories of private conversations, public humiliations, fractured family bonds, and promises that had never survived the pressure of royal life. At the entrance, all of it returned in a single glance. Catherine sat inside a private waiting room and removed her gloves one finger at a time. For years, she had built her public role around steadiness, refusing to let private wounds interfere with duty. That mattered, because the monarchy depended on visible calm, especially when family conflict threatened to overshadow the causes placed before it. Yet this time, the Princess of Wales could not step into a hall filled with vulnerable families and pretend the past had vanished. She looked at her private secretary and admitted, quietly but firmly, that continuing would have turned pain into performance. Meghan waited in a separate reception area, and her disbelief quickly hardened into anger. Her return to a royal setting carried the full weight of departure, accusation, estrangement, and the collapse of trust between the Sussexes and the institution. A royal household, meaning the staff and offices that support senior members of the family, should have known how explosive her arrival would be. She asked why Catherine had cancelled an entire engagement rather than speak to her. No one answered. She asked again. Still, no representative entered the room. William called within minutes. Catherine answered, but her voice remained controlled. The prince asked whether Meghan had threatened her or caused a scene. She said no. Then she told him the arrival was not accidental. This is about the promise she made and broke, Catherine said, before refusing to explain more over the telephone. The future king heard the hurt beneath her restraint. and he understood that this wound had begun long before the entrance doors opened. Meghan then told an aide she had not appeared without permission. She had received an invitation from someone directly connected to the event, complete with precise arrival instructions. Yet when palace staff checked the official guest list and internal correspondence, her name appeared nowhere. The document existed, but the palace had no record of issuing it. Charles received the cancellation notice during a private briefing. The king removed his glasses, reread Catherine's exact words, and set the page down slowly. He understood that one unexplained entrance now threatened duty, family unity, and public trust. Then he asked the only question that mattered. Who allowed Meghan through that entrance? The search began immediately, but Catherine already knew the deeper answer would be found in the moment that destroyed her trust months earlier. And the answer lay not in the entrance hall, but in a private encounter months earlier that Catherine had never forgiven and Meghan had never believed would return to haunt her. Months before the cancelled engagement, Catherine and Meghan had met without cameras, statements, or public witnesses. The conversation was meant to prevent another royal rupture. Instead, it created the wound that finally erupted at St. James's Palace. One request was made, one promise was given, and when that promise was broken during a deeply personal ceremony, Catherine decided that any future encounter would come with a boundary Meghan could never again cross. Catherine had agreed to the Windsor meeting because the family was already close to another fracture. William and Harry were barely speaking, and every new disclosure seemed to widen the distance between them. The private residence offered neutral ground, away from formal offices and official records. A memorial initiative connected to Princess Diana was also approaching, meaning a public program created to honor her life and charitable legacy. The princess feared that old resentment would swallow its purpose before it even began. Meghan understood the danger as well. She knew another public clash would affect more than two brothers or two wives. It would reach the children, deepen suspicion, and turn every future family moment into a test of loyalty. Catherine therefore made one request. She referred to a private conversation held after a small remembrance ceremony for Diana, and asked that its contents never leave the room. Meghan looked directly at her, and promised they would remain confidential. Weeks later, the promise seemed to collapse. Catherine heard familiar language during a recorded television interview, linked to Meghan's wider account of royal life. The phrasing was not merely similar. It echoed words spoken after the remembrance ceremony, words shared when grief had lowered every defense. She replayed the interview once, then stopped it. Her face changed before anyone beside her could ask why. William found the transcript waiting on the table that evening. Catherine placed one finger against the passage and told the prince she no longer knew whether any private act of reconciliation could survive. He read the lines twice. The future king wanted to defend the possibility of misunderstanding, but he could see that his wife felt exposed. Meghan later denied authorizing the disclosure through a documented message sent by her representative. She insisted someone else had adapted the conversation without understanding how personal it was. Yet before Catherine could decide whether to believe her, a handwritten warning arrived. It claimed Meghan might approach her during a future public engagement to correct the record in front of witnesses. Catherine folded the note, sealed it inside a blue folder, and gave her private secretary a direct instruction. Meghan was never to enter one of her engagements without written approval. That order was meant to protect duty, privacy, and trust. At St. James's Palace, someone had ignored it. When the two women were finally brought within speaking distance, Catherine was no longer asking why Meghan had come. She was demanding to know who had helped her get inside. The engagement had been cancelled, the guests had been moved away, and the palace doors were closed. Yet Catherine and Meghan were still under the same roof. When they were led into a private chamber with no audience and no cameras, years of restraint finally gave way. Catherine wanted the truth about the invitation. Meghan wanted the chance she believed had been denied to her. Neither woman intended to leave without speaking. Catherine refused the first suggestion that she leave through a private exit. Palace officials feared a direct confrontation would deepen the crisis and create another scandal the family could not control. The princess understood that risk, but she also knew the engagement had been conducted under her authority. That meant the guest list, security arrangements, and access rules were meant to protect both the event and the people attending it. Someone had broken those rules. She would not walk away without knowing who. The small antechamber offered nowhere to hide. Catherine entered first and remained standing. Meghan followed moments later, her anger already visible beneath the restraint she was trying to maintain. No aides stood between them. No prepared statement waited on the table. "Did you come here to speak to me?" Catherine asked, "or to force me to be seen speaking to you?" Meghan did not retreat. She said every private request for contact had been ignored, every message redirected, and every attempt at conversation buried beneath royal protocol. That protocol meant the formal rules controlling access, communication, and conduct around senior members of the family. To her, those rules had become a wall. She accused Catherine of hiding behind it, because genuine reconciliation would require both women to face what had happened. Catherine listened, then placed the hidden invitation on the table. She pushed it forward slowly, and asked Meghan to name the sender. The former Duchess looked down, saw the initials, and stopped speaking. The silence changed the room. The initials belonged to a trusted member of the royal household, someone with access to Catherine's confidential program and the authority to guide guests through secured entrances. Meghan admitted she had been told Catherine wanted a discreet meeting after the engagement, yet the instructions had ordered her to arrive through the public entrance at the exact moment the event began. Catherine's fury cooled into something sharper. Meghan had not simply appeared. She had been positioned. One woman had been given false hope, while the other had been denied warning. The plan depended on their pain colliding in public. William arrived before either could say more. The prince entered, took one look at the invitation, and recognized the initials immediately. His face hardened, because the name behind them carried influence far beyond one cancelled event. The confrontation had exposed the trap, but the deeper shock was still waiting in the signature of the person who believed Catherine could be cornered inside her own royal duty. Catherine had made the decision to cancel the engagement, but someone else had engineered the choice she was forced to make. The invitation did not come from Meghan, nor from an outsider seeking chaos. It came from within the royal household, from a figure who understood Catherine's schedule, Meghan's desperation, and the explosive power of placing them face to face before a room full of witnesses. Now William wanted that person brought before him. William examined the initials again, and felt his anger settle into certainty. They belonged to Sir Alistair Fenwick, a senior royal advisor trusted with sensitive family contact and ceremonial access. That role meant he could coordinate private meetings, control who entered official spaces, and move information between royal households. Alistair had served the crown for decades. He had begun to believe that experience gave him the right to cross boundaries whenever he thought the monarchy needed saving. The prince entered a private office where the advisor was already waiting. He closed the door himself, placed the invitation on the desk, and remained standing. Alistair looked at the document once, then admitted he had arranged Meghan's access. He said the family was drifting toward permanent division and claimed the moment had been designed to force reconciliation before the damage became irreversible. William did not raise his voice. That made his response more severe. "Reconciliation built on deception is not peace," he said. "It is coercion." Alistair tried to defend the plan, but the future king refused to let him hide behind duty. Catherine had been forced to sacrifice a charitable engagement because one advisor ignored her written boundary. Meghan had been offered false hope. The families waiting inside had been reduced to background figures in a private royal experiment. Then Alistair made the crisis worse. He revealed, through a documented briefing note, that Charles knew a private approach to Meghan was being considered. The king had never been told when or where it would happen, but his desire for family unity had been used as silent permission. A second document exposed the full design. Catherine was expected to continue the engagement after Meghan entered, allowing photographers to capture both women under the same roof and create the appearance of reconciliation. Charles arrived moments later. He read the plan without speaking. The monarch understood immediately that a wish he had expressed in private had been turned into authority he had never granted. His hand trembled as he set the page down. For the first time, the king saw that people acting in his name had stopped asking where his power ended. William watched his father closely. Catherine would soon have to decide whether Charles's indirect involvement was another betrayal or proof that the crown itself had lost control of those claiming to protect it. The invitation had been exposed, but its consequences were already escaping the palace, leaving Charles, William, Catherine, and Meghan to face a reality none of them could quietly contain. Within minutes, the cancelled engagement became more dangerous than the confrontation itself. Guests were escorted away without explanation. Charity leaders waited for answers. Staff members received conflicting instructions. And behind closed doors, 4 members of the royal family were forced to confront the cost of a decision designed to manufacture unity. The palace had tried to control an image. Instead, it had exposed how little control remained. Catherine sat alone in her car for several minutes before it moved. Her private secretary asked whether she regretted canceling, but the princess answered without hesitation. Continuing, she said, would have turned the family's being honored into background figures in someone else's royal drama. That mattered because the engagement had been created to support vulnerable children, not repair a damaged royal image. Her silence after those words carried more weight than any prepared statement. Meghan learned almost immediately that photographs of her arrival were spreading. The pictures showed her entering as Catherine's vehicle departed, creating a story before either woman had spoken publicly. She felt humiliated. She had believed the invitation was genuine, yet the public would see only provocation. The former duchess asked whether the palace would confirm she had been invited, but no answer came. The communications team drafted 3 explanations: illness, a scheduling disruption, and a security concern. Each one collapsed under the same problem. Photographers had already captured too much. A palace communications team, meaning the staff responsible for official public statements, could not hide the timing without risking a larger scandal once the invitation emerged. Charles called Catherine directly. The king apologized for failing to supervise the advisor's actions, but she told him the damage was not merely procedural. It had forced her to choose between duty and dignity. The monarch listened in silence because he knew that choice should never have been placed before her. William moved faster. The prince dismissed Sir Alistair Fenwick from all duties pending review, and ordered an investigation into every private royal invitation issued during the previous year. Within an hour, staff uncovered a draft statement prepared before Meghan arrived. It praised Catherine for welcoming a renewed family dialogue, proving the outcome had been scripted before she was given any choice. William read the statement once, then tore it in half in front of Charles. She was never expected to decide, the future king said. She was expected to obey the image. Before Meghan left, she wrote a short message by hand. She asked Catherine for 5 private minutes without advisors, titles, cameras, or palace plans between them. No performance, no witnesses, only truth. For the first time that day, Catherine was offered a conversation no one else had designed, and accepting it would become the moment that changed the meaning of everything that had happened. After the doors, invitations, advisors, and accusations, the turning point came through a handwritten request. Meghan did not ask for a public statement or a staged appearance. She asked Catherine for 5 minutes alone. No aides, no husbands, no royal language to hide behind. Catherine could have refused. Instead, she entered a small private room where 2 women finally spoke, without the monarchy deciding what their conversation was supposed to achieve. Catherine agreed only after confirming that no staff member would record, brief, photograph, or later describe what was said. She wanted no palace version of the conversation. Meghan left her telephone outside the room, while the princess removed the royal briefing folder from the table. A briefing folder, meaning the official papers prepared for a senior royal's duties and decisions, would have brought the institution back between them. For 5 minutes, neither woman wanted that. Meghan spoke first. She said she had not known the entrance was meant to create a public encounter. She admitted the precise timing should have warned her, especially when she was instructed to arrive just as the engagement began. Catherine listened without interrupting, but her silence remained heavy. The entrance was not the deepest wound, Catherine said. The promise was. She spoke about Windsor, the private conversation, and the fear that any moment of honesty might later become public material. Meghan acknowledged that the disclosure had felt like betrayal, even while insisting the words were circulated without her direct approval. She did not ask to be believed immediately. She only asked that her explanation be heard without another advisor shaping it. Then Meghan revealed the part Catherine had not known. She described, through saved messages shown before the meeting, how Alistair had contacted her team repeatedly. He claimed Charles and William supported an immediate reunion. He said Catherine's silence was merely formal protocol, and that the family wanted the distance ended before it became permanent. Catherine felt the entire design become clear. Meghan had been manipulated through hope. She had been manipulated through surprise. The plan depended on both women mistrusting each other more than the man controlling the encounter. That was the cruelest calculation of all. No embrace followed. No sudden forgiveness erased the past. Catherine simply slid Meghan's handwritten request back across the table. "This time," she said, "these words remain between us." Meghan nodded. She understood the boundary. They left separately, but Catherine had made one final decision. The public explanation would protect the charities, expose the deception, and refuse to make either woman the sole villain. The private meeting did not restore what had been lost, but it gave Catherine the clarity to face a public storm without allowing the palace to rewrite the truth again. By evening, the cancelled engagement was no longer a private royal crisis. It was the only story the country wanted explained. One photograph dominated every screen: Meghan standing beneath the stone entrance of St. James's Palace, while Catherine's car disappeared through the opposite gate. The image looked like rejection, confrontation, and unfinished history, captured in a single frame. But the official statement would soon transform how the public understood it. Television networks interrupted scheduled coverage, as the timing became impossible to dismiss. Meghan had arrived at the exact moment Catherine withdrew, and palace correspondents rushed to frame the incident as a personal clash between two women already divided by years of family tension. That mattered, because every old argument about loyalty, blame, and royal betrayal was returning at once. The cancelled charity event was already being pushed aside by the spectacle surrounding it. The London Chronicle captured the mood with brutal simplicity. Its fictional evening edition placed the photograph across the front page beneath the headline, "The Door She Would Not Cross." The image showed Meghan at the entrance and Catherine's empty place inside the hall. A front page, meaning the lead page used by a newspaper to signal its most important story, turned one private decision into a national symbol. Outside St. James's Palace, a crowd gathered behind the barriers. One woman held flowers intended for the cancelled event and spoke during a live broadcast. "Whatever happened," she said, "those families should never have been used as scenery for a royal reunion." Her words cut through the noise because they returned attention to the people the engagement was meant to honor. Catherine watched the coverage with growing guilt. She feared the charities would believe she had abandoned them. Meghan faced a different pain. She realized her presence had become a symbol of disruption, even though she had believed the invitation was legitimate. Both women understood that the public was judging an image without knowing who had arranged it. Then the palace released its statement. It confirmed that a senior advisor had issued an unauthorized invitation and deliberately bypassed established security and personal protocols. It also made clear that Meghan believed she had been invited properly. The truth prevented the scandal from becoming a simple attack on either woman. Charles personally telephoned the charity director. The king apologized for the disruption and promised Catherine would return for a rescheduled engagement conducted entirely on the organization's terms. The monarch knew words alone could not repair the damage. Action had to follow. With the advisor removed and the deception exposed, Catherine now faced the same entrance again. This time, no one would decide the meaning for her. The world had seen the cancellation, but Catherine's final answer would come when she returned to the place where the engagement had collapsed, and chose what the moment would mean forever. 7 days after walking away, Catherine returned to St. James's Palace. The same entrance stood before her. The same charities waited inside. But the atmosphere had changed. There was no hidden invitation, no engineered encounter, and no advisor controlling the story. Catherine had not returned to erase the cancellation. She returned to explain it through action, to prove that protecting one's dignity and fulfilling one's duty did not have to remain opposing choices. Catherine arrived with William beside her, but the prince stopped before the entrance and allowed her to continue alone. That mattered because the original decision had belonged to her, and the final response had to belong to her as well. The rescheduled engagement included the same families, speakers, and charity representatives whose moment had been overshadowed. A royal engagement, meaning an official public duty carried out on behalf of the crown, could only recover its purpose if those people were placed back at the center. Catherine paused at the exact place where she had first seen Meghan. She took one controlled breath, then crossed the threshold without turning toward the cameras. Inside, the princess did not mention the confrontation or the private meeting that followed. She simply told the audience that service must never become a stage for hidden agendas, because families seeking support deserved attention, dignity, and truth. Meghan remained away by mutual agreement. Through a private written message, she confirmed that she would respect Catherine's boundary and never discuss their 5-minute conversation publicly. The former Duchess did not ask for another appearance or another chance to correct the record. She understood that silence, this time, was part of the trust both women had agreed to protect. Charles made the consequences permanent. The king removed Sir Alistair Fenwick from royal service and introduced a rule requiring direct approval from the working royal concerned before any estranged family member could attend an official engagement. William supported the decision because the future king now understood the deeper danger. The monarchy had not been threatened by disagreement. It had been threatened by people manufacturing harmony while denying everyone involved an honest choice. Catherine's cancellation was no longer seen as weakness, jealousy, or panic. It became a refusal to let charity, family pain, and public duty be manipulated into false reconciliation. She and Meghan did not become close. The past did not disappear. But both women left the crisis with a clear boundary. No staged unity, no weaponized privacy, and no future contact built on deception. The crown survived by accepting a harder truth. Dignity without honesty was theater. Duty chosen freely still carried power. Catherine entered that palace as a woman forced to choose between duty and self-respect. But she left, having proved that the monarchy could preserve both, only when truth, consent, and human dignity mattered more than the image of royal unity. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.